You watched a wrestling show that was actually pretty decent, and then you watched, the New Jersey Devils, the greatest hockey team ever.
Yes.
So,
well, they suck right now. But
I see nothing wrong with this.
They currently suck as we're recording this, but that's a different story. Trust me, I get it. There's a reason we haven't been talking hockey much on the show since the season started.
I did pick up on that. I'm like, these guys are Devils fans. There's not much to discuss right now.
Yeah, it's been a rough start to the season. There's... Yeah, we saw a stat. I think they won like 5 games. This is as of recording this, so it's a little bit early, but 5 games in their last 22, they won. Like, wow, that's pathetic.
Yeah.
So, all right, let's get back. I have a sheet here to keep myself on track. When did you become a wrestling fan anyway? Like Attitude Era, pre-Attitude Era? That's always the question in our world.
Oh, yeah. Well, everybody's got their story of how it happened. My first introduction to wrestling actually happened when I was a little kid. So I had, everybody has like the neighborhood friend because he's like your same age and only lives a few houses away from you.
Exactly.
So one year he had a birthday party, and for his birthday he wanted to watch Hulk Hogan versus Andre the Giant. I'd never seen wrestling before. So he puts it on. I remember we were all gathered in like his parents' bedroom. We're all like sprawled out on their parents' like king-size bed, and we're all a bunch of little kids. So it's just a bunch of kids and snacks everywhere. And, we're doing the kid thing. It's on, but like people are chatting and talking about the latest toys and everything. Except for me. I was just staring at the screen, and I watched Hulk Hogan body slam Andre the Giant. And I'm like, that was awesome.
That's funny.
It's like that was the coolest thing I ever saw. So I was basically I was a filthy casual when I was a kid. Like, I only really watched wrestling with friends who were watching it. I never like watched it at home or anything. Until, of course, the Attitude Era happened, and that's when I became a full-blown wrestling fan because freaking everybody was doing it. And once I started realizing how awesome wrestling was, I started getting more into the history and the things that I missed. Now, granted, I definitely missed the 94, 95 era of garbage. But as I started watching, I was like, man, look at all this cool stuff I missed out on. And I became latched on to people like Bret Hart, Roddy Piper, Macho Man Randy Savage, and those guys sort of became my unsung heroes.
Nice.
Very nice. Hulk Hogan fan as a kid, but not a Hulk Hogan fan as an adult, that's for sure.
I don't think anyone truly is anymore, despite the reaction to Crown Jewel. I don't think anyone truly is a Hulk Hogan fan that much anymore. So,
you know what? Say what you will about Hulk Hogan the person, but the bottom line is he's the biggest thing that ever happened to pro wrestling.
Oh yeah, true.
To me that's to me that's something you can't argue. But at the same time, you don't have to. There is that point where you just look at the guy, you're like, dude, it's over. You're going to live on forever. You're going to be immortal, Hulkamania forever, but it's done. You're done. Stop.
Well, the funny part about Hogan, for me, I grew up, I didn't really watch wrestling as a kid. My mom hated it, and it was almost like forbidden to watch it when I was younger. So my friends were watching it in the Attitude Era, and that's kind of when I got into it, and I really started becoming a fan near the end of the Attitude Era. But like when I started going to shows, I can honestly say I saw Hulk Hogan at a house show in New Jersey right after the first draft, which is crazy because he was in the main event tagging with Triple H.
Yeah, the craziest thing about that is you saw Hulk Hogan work a house show.
Yeah, exactly. Well,
that's the craziest thing about it.
Hogan and Triple H in a handicap match against the NWO, Kevin Nash, The Big Show, and X-Pac.
Jeez.
That was a match that I saw. So, that was also the same house show loop that Brock Lesnar debuted on.
Well, there you go.
So, I saw Brock
That's pretty
Lesnar
cool.
versus the Hurricane and Spike Dudley in a match.
I've been there. I've been there for a debut before. I was there the debut of, oh my God, do you remember the Heartthrobs?
Oh my God! Unfortunately, I do.
Yeah, I remember their music hit. It was at the Garden. Their music hit, and we all just looked at each other like, "What the hell is this shit?"
I'm not sure. Were you at the same Garden show I was when Hulk Hogan tagged with Shawn Michaels and returned against Muhammad Hassan?
No, I never saw Muhammad Hassan in person.
Yeah.
My only live Hulk Hogan experience was a run-in that he did.
Yeah, that was during the Muhammad Hassan Shawn Michaels feud, and he brought back Hogan, and that was at the Garden when Hogan returned, quote unquote.
You know what I was there for live was the Eric Bischoff debut show in New Jersey.
That was my first show.
That was my first live show.
That was mine too.
And it was great.
I talk about that show all the time because that was my first show, and I was there for Bischoff. I was like, wait, I had no clue what was going on, but it was really cool to be in the building for it.
It was awesome. I loved it.
Do you listen to 80s 3 Weeks by any chance?
I do not.
He did a whole show about that night a couple weeks ago. So that's pretty cool.
I have to check that out.
Yeah.
That's basically my history with being a fan. Really, is basically how, which is funny because that's pretty much how a lot of people's histories are. Like, you know, I know so many people who didn't watch during that down period. You know, some people obviously have been watching their whole life, but there were people who just weren't watching. But I think Attitude Era brought everybody back into the fold, either for the first time or, you know, back when you were just a filthy casual like me.
Very true. All right, we could talk wrestling for an hour, but there's a couple of things on my list here. We'll come back. A while back, we were talking about setting this up, and you got my attention because you said to me you worked for the great and powerful House of Mouse. Please explain, how did this happen?
Well, I sure did. I sure did. So, Disney has an internship program called the college program where you can go down for a semester, you live there, you work at one of the parks or the hotels or something, you get a job, and you can also take classes.
I've heard of that.
Now, I didn't need to take the classes because I had actually already graduated, and I had never done an internship in college. I was actually going to graduate with no internship because it wasn't a requirement for me in my school to graduate. But the thing was, I really wanted to do it, and I had heard about this thing because I had a friend of mine. Her name is Tori, biggest Disney fan I know. She actually looks like Tinkerbell because she's like 5 foot tall and blonde and really cute. So she's Tinkerbell.
Right.
And she's telling me about this, and I realized that the last semester I can possibly do it, that anybody's eligible, is the semester after you graduate. That's the only time you can do it. And I was literally in my last semester. Everything was done except I had one elective I needed to do. So my last semester of college was just a Friday class. And I was like, you've got to be kidding me. An internship at Disney, you get to like live and work there. I'm like, that sounds like so much fun. So I applied for it. I got in. And this would be 2008 because I graduated in May. 2 days later, I was on a train going to Florida.
Wow.
I remember that. I had my cap and gown and everything. We did our departmental graduation, and then the big one that would have been held at the former Continental Airlines Arena, which then became the Izod Center, and I don't even know if it exists anymore.
It doesn't exist anymore.
Shed a tear. Pour one out for Izod. I had a lot of good memories there.
So do I.
That ceremony was actually happening while I was already on my way to Florida, so
wow.
I was like, well, I don't get to do the big cool arena one, but I will actually but I did attend my graduation, went home, packed for Disney next day on the train.
Wow.
So on May 21st, 2008, which is ironic because May 21st, 2005 was my ring announcer debut for World Star Wrestling. So May 21st is a significant date. Very significant in my life. It's 2 major anniversaries. I started my professional internship as a Kilimanjaro safari driver at Disney's Animal Kingdom.
Ooh.
And Basically, in a nutshell, when you complete your internship, if you've done really well, you haven't been messing around, you haven't been late, you haven't been calling off all the time. Basically, if you were a good employee, they automatically make you seasonal. And I was like, this feels like something cool I can do with my career. I want to stay here. So I actually moved to Florida and ended up working at Universal part-time because I wasn't getting enough hours at Disney. And, obviously you got to work to survive.
Right.
So I transitioned over to Universal while still technically working for Disney, and did Universal for 2 years before I went back to Disney full-time. So I did 6 whole years in the theme park industry, and I was a safari driver at the Animal Kingdom. I worked at Epcot. That's actually how I ended my theme park tenure. And then at Universal, I did a ton of stuff, but I was opening team for the Wizarding World of Harry Potter in June 2010.
That's crazy.
So I was there opening day. It was, let me tell you how insane that was. It was 5 a.m, and I'm walking in, and I'm like, man, people just don't sleep for things like this. There was every news truck imaginable. Every major news network, including like BBC and other world networks, were all there. They had huge spotlights set up. All the actors were there. And the line just to get into the land in the park, not even any of the rides, just to get into the land in the park at one point was 8 hours long. Wow. It stretched all the way around Islands of Adventure out into their City Walk area.
Holy
went
shit.
all the way to their NBA cafe. That was their line just to get in.
That's crazy.
But the whole day, I mean, people were getting off the ride weeping at how happy they were to experience a Harry Potter themed theme park. Like, it was the coolest thing I ever experienced, but it was also the most stressful because the to borrow a pun here, the magic wore off very quickly.
Yeah, I believe it.
And soon I was a very disgruntled muggle who was tired of dealing with people. I was a wizard who couldn't deal with the muggles anymore.
Wow. So
Disney actually became a better alternative. And Epcot, which is like the coolest park ever, and everybody out there who craps on Epcot.
I love Epcot.
Screw you.
I love Epcot.
Oh, I hear there's so much hate for Epcot. How boring it is and all this other stuff, and there's nothing to do. Screw you. Epcot rules.
Funny part is I'll plug a podcast on a different network. It's called Enchanted Chatter, and they just did a whole conversation about how cool Epcot is for adults. Like, a lot of people just talked about how cool it is. So it's weird to hear that now.
Yeah, it is. It's definitely the most adult-themed park, which is one of those things that sort of disappoints me because they're making changes to it that I'm not the biggest fan of. Don't get me wrong. I love the idea of a Guardians of the Galaxy ride. I absolutely do. But that is sort of incorporating one of Disney's franchises into the park.
Well,
like, the biggest thing that made me mad... Yeah, well, that was the thing that made me upset, was they got rid of the awesome Maelstrom ride, which was one of my favorite rides, and replaced it with something Disney-themed. And World Showcase, the whole idea of World Showcase was that every country you're supposed to immerse yourself in their culture. And you're kind of not... I mean, granted, you can meet characters and stuff there, but the whole idea was to be culturally appropriated. And Frozen has... I mean, I guess it takes place in Norway, but at the same time, like... It's not one of those necessary things, and I've never been on the ride, but I've seen the video of it, and Maelstrom was just so much better.
You know what though?
Hey, I'll tell you two.
Good.
I'll tell you 2 cool trivia facts about World Showcase you might not know. First of all, every single pavilion is actually sponsored by and funded by the government of that country.
Oh, I did not know that.
And the country they have 11 countries, and of one of them being America. So, of course, you got America plus 10 other nations. And the nations actually get to choose if they want to participate. And they have room to incorporate, I think, up to 20-something. They actually have the room for. So it seems small and cramped when you're walking through it, but it's really not. So, and everybody who works in those pavilions is a native of the country. They're an international working student. So when you go to the Mexican pavilion, everybody working there is actually from Mexico. When you go to Norway, when you go to China, when you go to Japan, Italy, Germany, England, even Canada.